Hey everybody, welcome to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast, dedicated to raising awareness, sharing IBD stories, and offering support for those with Crohn's and colitis. Together, we can share knowledge, experiences, and help show the world the many faces of IBD. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Gish, Crohn's warrior since 2006 and lifelong fitness fanatic. My guest today is Jenny Pascoe, who's here to share her journey with Crohn's disease and how it took 10 years of symptoms and a capsule endoscopy to finally get an official diagnosis and on the path to healing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jenny, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So, as my listeners know, I like to start off our interviews by asking about your Crohn's story. So, why don't you jump right in and talk about your journey with IBD, when you first started having symptoms, and how you finally got your diagnosis?
Okay, so it took 10, 11 years for my diagnosis, so it was quite a long time. I first started having problems when I was about 16 and 17. At first I thought it was just bad stomach bug. Just used to rest up for a couple of days, sometimes a whole week, and then just carry on with life. And then it would just happen like 2 months later, and then it would happen every 2 weeks, and then it started happening every week, and I was like, this is not okay. So I started going to the doctors. I was always fobbed off and told I was fine, just stress or hormones or whatever, or I just had to get on with it and I need to stop eating and change my diet. So I sort of put up with it for quite a while, really, probably longer than I should have done. But eventually my parents were getting quite concerned. So we went back and I finally had a doctor who actually listened to what I was saying. So I went and had blood tests and things like that done. I had a whole year of blood tests, endoscopies, colonoscopies, MRI scans, CT scans, more colonoscopies, and just tests coming out of my ears. But every result came back as within the normal range, that's what I was told. So in the end, after about a year and a half of going back and forth to the hospital and doctors, they just discharged me and gave me an IBS diagnosis. And my consultant basically said to me, none of my symptoms really match IBS, but we don't know what else it could be because my results keep coming back as normal. So that's what it is for now. And basically I just had to get on with it, is what he told me.
Wow. And how old were you when all that was happening? Because you first started having symptoms around 16?
16, yeah. So by the time I was out of the hospital the first time and discharged, I was about 18. And yeah, I was literally just told, your tests keep coming back normal, so you just need to get on with it.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So nothing was really fixed at that point, and it was slowly getting worse. So I at one point I lost 2 stone in the space of 2 weeks, and that wasn't quite enough because I've never been skinny. I used to be a little bit overweight when I was a kid, but I've never been obese, but I've never been bone skinny because I've always been quite fit. I've always been quite muscular. I've always been quite strong. So in terms of my BMI and all that rubbish, I've always been average or slightly overweight for my height because I'm short. So they didn't really care. If to be honest, they didn't seem to really care that this was happening to me, and it obviously wasn't serious enough for them to want to look into it anymore. So
it's almost the worst spot to be in when it's miserable enough that it makes your life difficult and hard, but then it's like you're saying in your case, the test just never came back normal, and so you're in this almost this purgatory of just feeling horrible all the time, and there's no relief in sight and not knowing what to do either.
I at one point I thought, is it all in my head? At that point, I had some of my friends saying, "Oh, it's just all in your head," and I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." But these things are happening to me, and I didn't really know what to do. I tried different diet. I tried doing gluten-free for a few months because one of my great aunties years back was once celiac, so maybe that's it. And I tried all sorts basically, and nothing really made it any better. But I just got on with it. I have I'm the sort of person that just gets on with life regardless. So I will turn up to work if I'm like on my deathbed, but I'll just keep going and keep going and keep going. And so I just did that, and I occasionally went to the doctor. So I started like, it started getting worse, and I started like bleeding, which was quite scary for me, because when that first happened, I was like, whoa, this is beyond what it was like before. Like, it's now like up to level. So I went back to the doctors a few times, and again, I wasn't skinny enough, basically. So they were like, yeah, just keep, just check in on your diet, make sure that, and I'm like, I eat really healthily, thank you. But so yeah, I did just get on with it, and until it got to the point where it was happening every single day, and I spent all day scared that I was going to have an accident. So I spent 3.5 years of my life not eating all day until I got home, and then I'd eat and then be really ill all night. But the only time I would eat was if I was in my own home, because I was too anxious to eat anything anywhere else. And the only time I felt sort of well was if I was hungry or just had an empty stomach.
And during that time, had you been going to the doctors at all, or had you kind of stopped going to the doctor because they kept telling you that there's nothing wrong?
Yeah, I went to the doctor occasionally, and it was more when my mum would be like, right, this is not on, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really saw a doctor that really listened. I think all they were looking for is someone who was like emaciated.
Mm-hmm.
And they almost didn't care. They almost didn't really listen to the fact that I don't eat during the day, and I couldn't eat anything without feeling really unwell. And they were like, oh, no, just try. Just have soup or have stuff. And I was like, I physically can't eat anything. It was like, at that point, it didn't even matter if I was sticking to all the foods that I knew didn't affect me, because every food affected me. Like, everything I put in my system just was rejected, apart from water. That was my like saving grace. I had water, and I had like vitamin supplements just to try and keep some sort of level. I mean, all this while I was a full-time teacher as well. So I was going into school every morning and teaching all day long, and then coming home, like marking all my books and planning more lessons and stuff like that, and eating and being ill all night, and then getting up and going back in the classroom the next day and teaching all day.
So how long did that go on until you were finally, did that go on for a few years? Because it took total almost 10 years for your diagnosis.
There was like, when I was first discharged from the hospital, obviously I went to university then, so I had to get my degree. So it was a good like 4-year degree. And in that time, things just got worse. I'd miss lectures sometimes, and sometimes doing the school placements was hard. And I spent years juggling the diet, because I thought, well, it must be the diet. I need to do more diet, and I need to try that. So I spent years doing that, and then I graduated, and I started teaching when I was 23, 24. And it was in 2014. And so I just threw myself into that. But from that moment, I wasn't eating during the day. I was only having like one meal a day. Occasionally I would eat like sweets, just something sugary just to get me through the day, but very small. And I'd like spoken to a couple of doctors. It wasn't until about 2 years into my teaching career, I moved. We sold like our family home, and I bought my own place. And like, I moved closer to where I was working, and then I had to obviously register with the different doctors. And I went in and saw this doctor and just told her my whole history. And she was specialized in gastro, like everything to do with gastrointestinal disorders and everything. And she was like, this is my passion, this is what I research, this is what I like, and what you're telling me is not okay. And so she sent me straight back to the hospital with an urgent letter. And honestly, she saved my life. Like, I think I probably would have, like, the way I was going, like, it wasn't a healthy lifestyle. I knew not eating it was healthy, but it was the only way I knew how to almost control it the best way I could at the time. And her sending me back to the hospital was definitely what helped. Although getting there, it was still a battle. They still did blood tests and said, no, it's fine, everything's normal. It wasn't until I got glandular fever, basically because I was just so run down from having no nutrition. So I spent 3 weeks off work there. And then after that, I just started picking up all the bugs. Being a teacher, I was surrounded by viruses and colds and coughs and snotty children all the time anyway. I picked up everything from chest infections to ear infections and like tonsillitis and all sorts. I was getting it one after the other,
Oh, wow.
and obviously I was constantly back in the doctor's surgery, like asking for more of this and more of that, and then they did a blood test, and my inflammation levels were up to 169, and they told me back then that they should be at around 7.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they knew something wasn't right, but that's the only test I've ever had that said it wasn't right. So then they sent me forward for this capsule endoscopy, and oh, thank God I had that, basically, because I got a phone call 2 days after I'd had the capsule endoscopy, sent the results in, and they said we found Crohn's.
Wow.
I actually cried. I cried with relief.
And the capsule endoscopy was fairly recently, is that correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, capsule endoscopy was last March last year, end of March last year, because they rang me the beginning of April to say this is what we found. So that's when I was diagnosed.
So what happened then? Did they start you on medication right away and then get you, with that official diagnosis, finally get you a path for treatment?
Yeah. So when they first rang me and said they found the ulcers, and his description of it was, you have ulcers on ulcers, inside like my ileum, where the Crohn's disease was. So he said, we want to get you straight on steroids. So I had a prescription faxed to the pharmacy, which was currently where my flat was, like downstairs. There's like a store, and next door was a pharmacy, and he faxed it that day so I could pick it up that day. And I started on a really high strength steroid initially, and I was taking like I think I had 4 tablets a day, and I had that for a month, and I had to try and wean off them, and they wanted to see if that like helped initially while they sorted out the rest of my treatment, and I tried to come off them after a month, and my symptoms came back full whack, so I went back up. So I ended up being on steroids for about 6 months before I could finally get off them. And then it was in June, so I started steroids in April, and in June last year they put me on Humira, which are the immune suppressant injections. And they gave me the highest loading dose they could, because they said over the last 2 years, but what they said is back in 2000 and God, what was that? 2009, 2010, the hospital should have spotted and should have sent me for the capsule endoscopy back then. So because I've been left so long, my Crohn's was so bad that they had to give me as the highest of everything they possibly could, to avoid surgery.
How long did it take for you to finally get into remission once they started you on the high doses of Humira? Was it a few weeks, a couple of months?
No, like I didn't feel the effects of the Humira for about 6 months. It was, which was frustrating for me in some ways, because I was like, I'd read all about it. I'd heard like the side effects, but I'd also heard all the wonderful stories about people like on my social media platform that have been like, Humira saved my life. Like, it's really got me, eating again. And I was so excited. I think I was almost impatient. So I started taking them in June, and it wasn't till like October, November that I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Like, I'm having more good days now than I am bad days. Like, that's a good sign. And then by Christmas, I was like, I'd say almost back to the normal me in terms of being able to eat. It was more my anxiety that was holding me back then, because obviously being so ill just made me so anxious about food in general, about being out eating food.
Yeah.
I was so, like, the anxiety was what was almost making it worse. But yeah, it took 6 months. I would say, like, obviously I'm a year on now, over a year, nearly a year and a half that I've been on Humira, and I don't think I'm yet in remission. But I know, because I've recently actually been over to the States for the summer. And when I came back, my order for my next set of injections came late. And in the time I was waiting for it, I had like a really bad flare up. So I know that it's the injections that are stopping that from happening, which is like a good thing. But at the same time, I know that my body's not yet like completely in remission, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. And what a story and what a journey, because I've heard so many people who have shared a similar experience where doctor after doctor just keeps almost telling them, like they told you, that it's in their head, or just, figure it out, and it's such a difficult place to be in. And so I think it really illustrates how important it is for people to really find a gastroenterologist and a doctor who will really listen to everything that you're going through and really care about what's happening and work to find a solution. Because what a, what a journey to have to go through this for 10 years and not have any light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah. It's like I can't fault like some of the doctors I've had. I can't fault them because part of it I think was my fault in the way that I'd go and see them and I'd almost downplay some of the symptoms because I'm not the sort of person that breaks down in front of people easily. So at home I'd break down and
Mm-hmm.
cry when I was really ill. But then you get to the doctor and be like, yeah, so it hurts sometimes. This happens, like really matter of fact. So I learned to like open up a bit more and be far more honest.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the consultants, like a couple of the consultants, even the one that discharged me, like I don't blame them because they're sitting there with all that paperwork and it's all saying that I'm in the normal range. So there's some tests they couldn't send me for because their superior were like, well, no, because all the tests say they're normal, so there's no reason for them to have that further test. And I've had several conversations with them where they were in a battle with themselves, that they wanted to give me more, they wanted to help me more, but because the
Mm-hmm.
facts on paper said that everything was fine, they physically couldn't do that. And that's where I think the problem lies. Like if someone's test results are saying normal, but they are still going through this horrific time,
Mm-hmm.
that's reason enough for me. Like come around my house, watch what happens if I eat food. Like
Yeah.
then send me for that test that I needed like years ago. But yeah, it's quite complicated. I mean, I'm lucky over here because the NHS is free.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I pay my taxes and stuff, like I can get all this medical stuff for free. So I'm so lucky.
That is good. And I think I do want to highlight, because I think you touched on an important point there of talking about how you learned to finally open up and talk a little bit more with your doctors. Because hearing you say that, honestly, I have done the same thing many, many times myself, where at home I'm almost in tears when things are so bad, and I'm telling my husband or my family, and I'm going through all these things like, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on. And then in the
Yeah.
past, I've gone to the doctor and I've kind of clammed up, and it's like, how bad is your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? And it's like, well, I made it here today and I'm, I'm functioning.
Yeah.
And then I downplay how bad I feel. And,
Downplay it.
and then I panic and I forget all the questions I was going to ask. And then I don't ask anything, or I don't relay all the information I wanted to. And so I think that's a key point to really just kind of emphasize of, take notes and make sure you communicate everything that you're wanting to with the doctor so that they can help you.
Questions, write down the key points. Like I like kept a little diary in the end of this is what I'd eaten, this is the reaction I had, this is how long it lasted. Pain on a scale of 1 to 10. Sometimes I wrote 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I always took some. In the end, I had to take someone with me. So every time I went to the doctors, went to the hospital. I mean, some days I needed someone with me because I physically couldn't drive myself. But having someone in there that is more than willing to stand up and say no, like this is what you said isn't is worse than that. Like Jen, tell them exactly what happened that night, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't fault my partner for that, and my parents, like just saying they helped my case, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
by like encouraging me to be really honest and open about everything. And like your pain was definitely not just a 5, it was more like a 15. Like be
Yeah.
honest, come on, tell them.
That's a great tip, to
And
have someone with you and to really be that champion for you, because I think we all need that at times.
yeah, because you don't like when you go through something like that every day, like until I didn't realize, like I almost feel like I was boring people with it. Like, yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think that's why you downplay it, because you think, yep, I'm coming back to the same doctor for the same reason. Nothing's changed. Like as much as that's reason itself, like you don't. I needed that person there to be like, yeah, so nothing's changed. So what are we going to do about it now? Because what you suggested before clearly hasn't worked, and she can't live like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until my mum said to the consultant that she can't live like this that I realised what my life had become. and that
Yeah.
no, I couldn't live like that anymore, and I shouldn't have to either, just because something in my blood says it's normal.
And I think that's what makes it hard is that because we live with it every single day, we have a tendency to almost normalize it because it's like we have to get through the day, and so we kind of trick ourselves into thinking it's normal, and it takes that outside person to really just say this is not normal. This something has to
Yeah,
change.
yeah, definitely. I find it so easy now to just not eat all day because my body's got used to that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about food. You've tried a lot of different diets over the years that you were not on any medications. Talk to me about some of the things that you noticed over the years that were big trigger foods for you, or if you had any safe foods. And tell me a little bit about that eating journey.
So when I was first sort of in under the consultant at the hospital, like, they also got me to meet up with the nutritionist, who, if I'm perfectly honest, was not very helpful because I'd done a lot of research myself. So I started doing a food diary. I did it for about 3 or 4 months, just to see that before my next appointment if there was any trigger. The only trigger I initially found was caffeine. Like, if I had a cup of tea or a cup of coffee,
Hmm.
oh my god, was I in pain straight away. So straight away I just stopped having that. I stopped having tea coffee altogether because I wasn't sure exactly what it was. And it wasn't until I had like decaf tea that I realized it was probably the caffeine in it, which meant that, like, I didn't drink Coke anymore. I have to be careful how much chocolate I eat, and like, caffeine's in loads of things. So
Hmm.
that was like a massive trigger for me. Like, even now, if I have caffeine, like, oh my god, do I know about it, to the point that I would probably have to ring a doctor. Like, so I know that's a really big trigger. Um, but other than that, a lot of the food I ate didn't really do a lot. I slowly saw that gluten made me more bloated, which just added to all the
Hmm.
uncomfortable feelings I was having and all the pains and stuff I was having. So I slowly stopped eating gluten. Like, I'd already done the trial gluten-free diet just to see if it was celiac disease or not, but I found that actually eating less gluten in general just helped. So I've been like that now for about 7 years. I've been gluten-free,
Hmm.
and that's massively made a difference. And then about 4 years ago, randomly, I had a yogurt and then was really, really ill. And then the next day, I'd had something like, I think I had a pasta with like a slightly creamy sauce, and was really, really ill. And I was like, this is really strange. So this never happened to me before. I had ice cream and I was really, really ill. So I just realized that, okay, dairy is not my thing.
Hmm.
So I stopped dairy completely, but then I'd have the odd thing, and I realized that, luckily, thank the Lord, I can still eat chocolate. Because I think
Hmm. Hmm.
that would have been a process of grieving if I could no longer eat chocolate.
I definitely
I mean,
understand.
obviously, dairy-free chocolate, but especially, like, Cadbury chocolate. Like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
so glad I can still eat that. And I can still have like cheddar and mozzarella cheese, but I can't have anything more creamy. I can't have milk, so I have like oat milk or almond milk now. So I'm like mostly dairy free,
Hmm.
but that sort of came out of the blue. Like, I was absolutely fine until one day that yogurt, no, just couldn't eat it.
You know, it's interesting. I've noticed a similar thing over the years where I'll be eating certain things and they seem just fine, but then all of a sudden it's like my body just changes and that food that I used to be able to eat is suddenly off limits and I can't tolerate it anymore.
And actually, a couple of years ago, when I went back in, when I was referred back in before my diagnosis, I went to see the nutritionist again, and they showed me the low FODMAP diet.
Hmm.
So they put me on that, and that was like a massive, like, cutting out loads of stuff, and then you slowly introduce each food group at a time. So I had like this. I had so much paperwork. To be honest, it was quite overwhelming initially
Hmm.
because I had to have a list up on my fridge. I had to, like, check that everything I was buying was on the list, and and I had to check ingredients, and it was quite stressful. But at that point, I would do anything to help what was happening to me.
Hmm.
So once I got used to it, it was okay. The hardest bit was onions. Trying to keep onions out of your diet when it's in every kind of sauce, like soups. Is like, onions are in everything.
They
Like,
are.
that's been, yeah, literally everything. And that's definitely a trigger because every time I have them, I'm not well. So unfortunately, that's something when I reintroduced straight away knew that I wouldn't be able to eat that again.
How long did you stay on the low FODMAP diet?
Well, technically, I'm sort of still on it because I'm
Hmm.
still introducing foods, because the way you have to reintroduce is like you just take one at a time, and you have to have a small piece of it on the first day. Then you have to, the second day, you have to have like say 2 portions of what you had, and then you have to have a bit more. So take it, if for example, if it's like bread, you have to have like half a piece of bread on the first day, then you have a whole piece of bread on the second day, then you have 1.5 pieces on the third day, and then you have 2 pieces on the fourth day, as long as you haven't had symptoms between. So as soon as you get symptoms, you stop. And so, and then you have to leave 3 or 4 days without, like, going back on the low FODMAP diet without eating that bread before you can reintroduce something else. So it takes weeks and weeks to reintroduce each food. So far, I think I've managed garlic, but very occasionally. So I can have a little bit of garlic.
Hmm.
Red meat, again, very occasionally. I'm okay with the smaller amounts and every so often. I can eat broccoli now. I can have mangoes now. Thank God, they're one of my favorite fruits. I was like
Hmm.
really sad when I couldn't have mangoes. I was kind of most of the stuff I couldn't have, but yeah, there's other little bits that I've had, like more vegetables I've been able to add in. Celery I can now eat. Some other fruits I can eat, bananas. Can't remember what else. I can have like lemon and lime stuff, the
Hmm.
citrusy bits. I can't have oranges flat out. But then my mum also gets really bad migraines with oranges, so I don't know if there's a link there.
Now, do you have to limit the quantities when you're eating these foods? Some of the foods it sounds like you're now able to eat that you weren't able to before. Do you have to watch the quantity? Does that affect how it upsets your system?
The ones that I've completely reintroduced, apart from like the garlic and the red meat, I
Hmm.
can, at the moment, I eat like broccoli and carrots most days,
Hmm.
and I seem to be fine with it. Um, Obviously, like broccoli is quite high in fiber, which I think was the issue before, but I found that I need that fiber, because when
Hmm.
I cut it out completely, all my digestion almost went the opposite way. Everything just like stopped.
Hmm.
So I think that's been one of my key bits of fiber. So most things I can just eat like I used to eat them, apart from the odd thing. But yeah, it's still like an ongoing process, really.
It's hard to do too. It like you're talking about, it just takes a lot of discipline, and it's a very regimented
Yep.
process to get through the whole thing.
Yeah, especially when you go out for dinner and you're like, I really want that, but I just can't have it.
Yeah.
Or
The
ice cream.
onions are in
Love
there.
ice cream so much. Yeah, there's onions in that, right? And in yeah. I didn't have ice cream for 5 years in a row. We finally got dairy free ice cream over here. That was
Hmm.
like the most exciting day of my life. God. And when I spent the summer in America, this summer, they have mint chocolate chip dairy free in America. Okay.
Hmm.
We don't have that over here yet. I ate
Oh.
so much of that stuff. I was like, they need to bring it over here because it's my favorite flavor, and I've been waiting years for
I
dairy free mint chocolate chip ice cream.
I can't believe they don't have it over there. What's the delay?
I was in heaven out there. You have so much variety. We don't have that. I mean, it's better. It's definitely getting better. I think
Hmm.
more people are choosing to do gluten and dairy free diets and be vegan. So
Yes.
we're getting a lot more, luckily, thankfully. So it helps people like me out that have to
Hmm.
eat that way. But yeah,
We
food's
could,
been a bit of a, I've had a weird relationship with food over the years, and I'm slowly getting a better relationship with it. I'm not so afraid of eating now, which is good.
yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that, and I know I experienced the same thing too, where you really just become afraid of food. You dread going out to restaurants, you don't want to go eat out places. It's a very stressful situation to have to look at food and think, I don't know what this is going to do. I'd rather not eat it.
Yeah.
So, you're definitely not alone in that regard.
Oh no, definitely.
Tell me a little bit about fitness because you're a very active person from skydiving to weightlifting. So tell me a little bit, how do you find, does fitness help you manage your IBD?
It does, yeah. I find that obviously when I was like horrendously ill, it was something I really struggled to still do because fatigue was really bad, and every time I moved, I had like was nearly had an accident, so that was hard, and it
Mhm.
was really hard for me not to work out because I think for me, fitness is not just my physical health; it's massively helps my mental health,
Mhm.
and I just like being active. I like the endorphins. I like challenging myself. I like pushing my body to see how far it can go. And I've always, since I was about 17, I started going to the gym when I was 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I wanted to be fit and I wanted to be healthy, because I used to compete as a swimmer. So I used to be a competitive swimmer from when I was 6 years old, all the way through till I was about 13. And then for some reason I gave it up. I think in my early teenage brain, I couldn't be bothered to do the 5 o'clock in the morning wake up swims. So I gave it up, but I started teaching it instead and coaching it instead. And I've done that ever since. But I didn't really have that. I swam occasionally, but I didn't have that as much like of that fitness routine. So when I was like 16, I was starting to get quite bored. So I started going to the gym and got into that. And I really liked seeing how my body changed and how my muscles grew and how I got so much stronger and so much fitter. And I started like beating a lot of my male friends. And I'd be like, I'm actually stronger than you. And I met loads of really cool people. And so I've always loved that environment. And like I said, I just like the challenge. So things like the skydive, I've done 2 of those now. I'd happily do a third. I just like, it's the most incredible thing. Like I like to be a bit scared, and I like to go out of my comfort zone a bit and see how that tests me. But yeah, anything like that would bungee jumping is not maybe something I do, but
well, that's surprising because I would think that would be less scary or easier than skydiving.
well, I don't know, because I always thought that. Like I never say never, because I if someone dared me to do it, I'd do it. But the fact that like you go head first, I mean, because when you skydive, like obviously the first time I skydived, I was so scared. And I did it, the first time was way before my diagnosis as well. So I was going through all that, and everyone knows that everyone gets a funny tummy when they're nervous anyway. So I arrived and just didn't eat all day long until I went up in that plane and came out. But the first time I did it, it was like, I thought you'd have that feeling of falling, but you don't. You feel like you're floating, and it's the most incredible thing ever. And from that moment, I swore that I would just go headfirst into anything, any challenge anyone gave me, because I didn't want to miss out on it feeling like that. And I didn't want to miss out on experiences like that, because it's just one of the most insane feelings in the world.
Wow.
And so, yeah, doing it again for Crohn's and colitis UK this year.
Are you doing it as a fundraiser? Is that what they're doing?
The first year I did it for multiple sclerosis, and this year when I did it for Crohn's and colitis. Yeah, I did it as a charity.
Oh, fantastic. What an incredible experience too, to have that feeling and then to be able to go back to it, like you're saying, of just seeking that same feeling, the exhilaration, and just kind of motivating you through everything else.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty much why I went back to America this summer, to be honest, because after having 3 years of, I'd say probably hell, and this disease almost taking over my life, I wanted to get my life back and coming back. So I did a camp out there and worked. And I did that back when I was at uni. So when I was like 20, 21, I did 2 years in a row at this camp. And the camp got in contact with me and asked me to come back out. And I was like, I never would have thought this time last year that I'd be brave enough to get on a plane by myself again and go anywhere, to be honest, let alone over to America for as long as I did, without worrying about what my body was going to do and how my Crohn's was going to behave. I just went for it and loved every second of it. And again, like, so good. I could just it almost took me back to me, because I've spent too long letting the disease control me last year. And like speaking to people on social media, speaking to my friends, speaking to my family, I really wanted to get back to me again, because I'd lost part of me through this whole process. And so when I went out there this summer, I just became me again. Like Crohn's is no longer controls me, I control it. Like,
yeah, that's a great spot to be in. Tell me a little bit more about the trip. How long did you spend out here? And then what were some of the things that you did to help prepare to be here for so long and to be overseas, just with medications? And were there different things you did to help control your nerves and just keep Crohn's calm? Is there any sort of tips or tricks you had for such a long trip?
well, I spoke to obviously my consultant and said I was going, so I had to organize collecting all my medication. I had to get like cool bags and stuff to keep my injections at the right temperature, make sure I had all that with me. I had to take all of my paperwork, the letters and things you have to show the security, and I had to make sure all my medication was there. And I think for me, as long as I knew my medication was there and that I could maintain those 2 weekly injections and keep that going, considering it has served me so well so far, it was almost a bit more of peace of mind. Going back to the same place that I'd been years before, and also there was still some of the same people there, meant that for me that was still like a known environment. I think if I'd been going somewhere brand new, I would have been far more anxious about it. But because people there knew me, they knew me before my diagnosis as well as after my diagnosis. I've been friends with them I hadn't been back for 7 years yet. I'd kept in touch with them for 7 years. So going back over there was just seeing them and talking to them. I felt comfortable already, which massively helped. But in terms of like worrying about my Crohn's, like obviously I still was anxious. Like, what happens if I get a flare when I'm out there? What happens if it's really bad? Like, I had to obviously get medical insurance and all of that, but I was like, how will I cope with it? And then I realized that it doesn't matter where I am in the world, I'm going to cope with it the same way I do at home. Like, I'm going to rest up if I need to rest up. Like the people that employed me at camp, they were like, anything you need, you just tell us. They put me at ease. Like, I was open with them straight away. I told them that I'd need access to a bathroom all the time. I'd need no questions asked if I needed to go. I need no questions asked. Like, I don't want people asking me all the time if I'm okay. I just need to be able to ask for this and you give it to me. Or I spoke to them about my nutrition, and I actually end up having a chef there that specialized in like dietary requirements. So obviously I wasn't the only one at camp. Some of the kids and some of the other staff had needs and stuff, but it meant that I basically had food cooked specially for me the whole time I was out there. And so I arrived at like beginning of June, and I didn't come home to the end of August. So I was out there for nearly 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And it's the best I've felt since my diagnosis. And I think that's just because I relaxed and I took more of a take each day as it comes and just enjoy every second of it, because it's an amazing experience. And I had that mindset. And to be honest, in order to get there, when my anxiety was really bad, I employed a hypnotherapist to help me with that. And I had hypnotherapy. I had 4 sessions of hypnotherapy, because for me, like, the doctors were like, oh, you can have an antidepressant for that. We can give you this for that. But the pills weren't going to stop. They were going to quiet my mind, but not actually target the cause, because it's all like your inner thoughts and stuff. Like I looked it up and I was like, I need something that will help me do this. And I started like meditating and using the app called Headspace, just because it was like 10 minutes here, there, that I would do before work. I would do sometimes in the middle of the day if I was having a bit of an anxiety attack, and I would just use that. That helped amazingly, but it wasn't until I got my hypnotherapist in, and she was incredible. Like, I went from someone who would the only time I went out the house was to go to work, and would genuinely like my heart would race, and I'd have the sweats walking around the store just collecting food for the evening, or food for the week. I'd run in the store and think of the quickest route I could to get in and out of there before I was like sick, or before I had like a massive panic attack because I was that anxious. Like, and she took me from that to being able to fly on my own to America. Like, she helped me get in that mindset.
Yeah, and it's so amazing how our bodies really do respond to just the stress and anxiety and our mindset. There really is that mind body, the mind gut connection. It's there. And so what an
Yeah.
incredible experience to go through the hypnotherapy and to have that help. Is it something that you're going to continue?
Yeah, like, I haven't had anything since, but it's not. It's something I will definitely do in the future. Obviously, it's quite expensive, but it was worth it for me at the time, and I've had enough for now that I know I can use some of the techniques. So some of the things she taught me were like, imagine the worst case scenario. Now, what will you do in that scenario? So every scenario that could have possibly happened in America, or can possibly happen even just day to day, I already had a solution of how I was going to get out of that, or how I was going to work through that. So even if I'd had the worst flare up in the world, I already had an action plan. Like, I will do this, I will speak to that person, I'll do this, and it'll be fine. So I mean, obviously those worst case scenarios that build up in your head, they never happened, because most of the time they never do. But it meant I already felt prepared rather than just totally out of my depth. And I think just strategies like that massively helped. And knowing that I could take 5 minutes away and meditate if I needed to, or just do some breathing exercises, or just focus like in the moment. It doesn't matter what's going to happen tomorrow. It doesn't matter what's going to happen in an hour's time. Like I for the first time in God knows how long, I ate 3 meals a day when I was at camp. I haven't done that in about 5 years, and I ate 3 meals a day, and by the end of camp I was eating 3 meals a day and snacks, and I was fine, and I was eating and everything was fine. I didn't have any symptoms. I had the odd twinge or the odd cramp, but it was nothing on what I was experiencing before. And so just knowing I could do that, and that's given me the confidence when I've come home to start eating out. So I've actually eaten out, but even just the last couple of weeks, more times the last couple of weeks than I've eaten in the last 7 years. And to be able to go into a restaurant and eat without even thinking is just small. It's a small thing to some people, but for me, it's just like the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, I think for many people with Crohn's and colitis, it's a big thing.
Oh, it's huge.
Now, do you still continue to do the meditation?
Yes, yeah, I do, yeah. And actually, I do it most nights before I go to sleep. But on the app I've got, so the Headspace app I use, you got meditation for different reasons. So there's meditation for mindful eating, which was one thing I was using a lot to try and get my brain into the sense of food is not the enemy. And there's meditation for sleep. There's meditation if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling anxious, if you need motivation, if you need to stop procrastinating, if you need any kind of, if you're having relationship problems. Like there's a meditation for every kind of problem or issue you may possibly have in your life on that app. So you can just select, and it can be 5 minutes or 25 minutes. You can sort of choose how long you want to do it for. And the first time I did it, sat on my living room floor, like with my eyes shut, like, yeah, I found it quite funny. Like it's a bit of a taboo. Like it's the weirdest thing I've ever done, but since I've done it, it has changed my mindset and things, and it's made me stop, because I found that being a teacher, you're busy all the time. You're constantly working. Like I worked 7 days a week, all year round, even in the holidays. Didn't really stop and take a minute for me. So just having those 5 minutes for me just massively helped, just ground me a little bit and calm everything down, just to reduce those stress levels.
That's a great tip.
And being able to just use it whenever. It's on my phone, so I can just click it whenever I like.
Yeah. I think more people need to start integrating that meditative practice, because it really does just puts you in a whole different spot. It's peaceful, it's calming, and it just really kind of gets you ready to either take on the day or gets you ready to sleep and enjoy the night.
Oh, it does. And actually, like I found now that if I put a meditation on, I don't even hear the end of it because I'm asleep. It helps me just switch off completely and actually sleep, rather than having like a thick sleep. I'm just out for the count. So
that's great.
It helped, definitely.
So tell me about some of the tips you have found over the years on how you've been able to manage flares and your symptoms. Since you've spent most of this entire time in a flare-up, what are some of the things that you would do in the past to help you kind of get through your toughest days?
I guess the fundamental thing that I do is drink loads of water. When I'm really flaring, I try and just hydrate myself as much as possible, because I know that when I'm not, like, it makes me feel 10 times worse. I get headaches, like you feel really fatigued even more than normal. So I drink tons of water, and I mean like 8 to 10 liters a day, just to keep me hydrated. And sometimes it's the only thing I consume. If I'm in a really bad flare up, I will starve my body and just let it settle, give it some time, so I'm not just constantly giving it more food to try and digest properly. I just starve it, and that could be for the morning, that could be for the whole day and the whole night, depending on how I am. I try and avoid taking pain medicine, so I avoid taking paracetamol, and obviously definitely don't take any ibuprofen, because that's just going to make things worse. I try and avoid that, because I find that It doesn't actually do anything anyway because the pain's so bad. But it's just putting another chemical in my body that's not really going to help. So I try and just get as much rest as possible. And let's face it, flares always happen when you least want them to. They're never convenient. They never happen when, you've got time off, or they always happen when you've got loads to do. But if it's happening, it's telling me my body needs to slow down. So I just listen to my body and think, right, I need to make sure that I'm getting enough rest. I need to make sure I'm hydrated. I need to make sure I've got all the nutrients I need. And sometimes that can just be having soup and almost like a liquid diet just to help digestion if necessary. It might be going for yoga or meditation rather than a hardcore session at the gym, but just trying to keep that going. What I try and avoid doing is lying in bed all day, because that doesn't help. For me, that doesn't help my mental health. I might lie on the sofa and, move around the chairs in the living room, might sit on the floor, sit on the sofa, move all day, but I get up and get dressed because I think mentally that helps you feel better straight away.
It does. Tell me, I saw something on your Instagram that you mentioned peppermint capsules. Is that something you use frequently, or how have you found that to help in the past?
I used to use them every day, and that was mainly when I was really nauseous, and I still do. So if I have a really bad nausea in the day, that I'll use them, and I still have them. So if I feel like I'm not really digesting things properly, I'll have one. Or sometimes I have them on flights because, obviously, especially flying long haul, I found that I couldn't eat plain food, even the specialist diet plain food they had, because it did not sit well with me. All the pressures in the plane, they make everything everyone with normal digestive systems like swell up and get irritated. So I found I couldn't really do that, but at the same time I still needed food, so I would take them, and that would just help. It does help the digestion, but it particularly helped my nausea mainly. But yeah, I do still have them, and I also have aloe vera capsules that I take at night, and in the morning I have I have multivitamins and B12 and calcium and vitamin D that I take every single day. I take like the lowest dose, and then if I get a cold or I get some sort of virus, like other than my Crohn's, I can at least double that dose. And I find that the vitamins alone usually get rid of the cold like faster than I've ever had before, even though I'm immune suppressed. Like, it's amazing.
Wow. Those are great tips. Good things to keep in mind. So tell me, what compelled you to start sharing your Crohn's journey and to start becoming an advocate for IBD?
Well, I think when I first had a sort of a diagnosis, I started like looking people up. Basically, I was like, there must be people out there that have the same thing as me. So I went on Instagram and just typed it in, and so many people came up, and I started reading all their stories and seeing how they were really poorly and now they're really well. And actually sometimes seeing people that have been in and out of hospital and been admitted like 10, 12 times in a few months, it made me realize that, whoa, I'm actually lucky. And my gosh, what must they be going through if they're actually having to be in the hospital? And I never had to stay in a hospital. I've had one day where I spent the day in a hospital, but I've never stayed in there overnight. I've never had to. I'm really lucky in that sense. Either that, or I'm just stupid because I've stayed at home when I've been really ill and just not called anyone, which I've been told a few times. But at the same time, seeing all that and seeing how much worse I could be, that helped, because I was like, okay, things could be worse. But there's also all these people, and everyone was so friendly. I found that like I could just message people and ask questions, and straight away they'd reply, and they were just so open and kind about it. And they helped me, and it made me want to help other people. But at the same time, having my own Instagram gave me a platform that I could talk about it, because I found that I'd almost exhausted the conversations with my family and my friends, and no one that I lived with, or none of my family or my friends, had the same thing as me. So no one really understands until they go through. As much as they try, as much as they've been amazingly supportive, and I wouldn't like change it for the world, they don't understand it because they're not going through it. So it was really good talking to like other people that really got it, and being able to be like complain without being judged all the time, and like complain about the same things. As I said before, trying to complain about the same symptoms every day, you just think, oh, it must be boring, these people, when actually I know that everyone on my like Crohn's Instagram family they've all heard it all before, and they don't care if you say it again.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to know. They just want to help. And I've
Exactly.
met so many people on there, and it's been like, it's definitely helped enormously. And just sharing pictures. Sometimes I just share pictures for me. I'm like, I need to post this because I'm feeling rubbish, and I need to tell someone, and that someone's just going to be my little community there. I don't care if people don't message back. I just needed to tell someone because I need to get it off my chest, sort of thing.
We really do have an amazing IBD community that is on social media because just like you, I've had so many people that, you can reach out and ask a question, and everyone is so incredibly friendly and supportive. And it really is just an incredible place to be. So I really encourage everyone to find the IBD community that's, on Instagram, on Facebook, because it really is a great group of people that's out there.
And it's so easy to find as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like once you've gone on one profile, there's links to other profiles, and you find that everyone is following everyone. And
Exactly.
there's no trolling on there. There's no question is a silly question either. So I find that sometimes you like I went through moments where I was like, am I going to die? Because I felt that unwell, and I lived on my own as well, which obviously made it harder because I thought, what if I don't wake up in the morning? Because I was in like bleeding so much. I was in the bathroom on my own. I was like, I don't know. There's no one I could call people right now. I had loads of friends I could call that would have been there in a second, but you don't want to interrupt them. I didn't want to bug them again. I knew they needed to also get up for work the next day. So it was like messaging these people like, this is happening to me. Should I go to the hospital or will I be okay?
Yeah.
Like, what should I do? And that was like, everyone was just there straight up.
And it's a community that everyone has been maybe not in the exact same position, but we all understand where we're each coming from because we've all gone through this horrible disease and we've all got our own experiences to draw upon. And so it's easy to rely on each other.
Yeah. And I found people that maybe have got it worse than me still don't undermine my disease and how
Mm-hmm.
my journey with it. Like they don't think, oh yeah, but I'm worse than you, so I don't know what you're complaining about. They're still really sympathetic. They're still like, yeah, this is rubbish. Like I really hope that gets better for you. I hope this helps. Like try this. And
Mm-hmm.
even if they're stuck up, in hospital on a drip, like being tube fed, like they're still there for you.
They are. So if people want to find you online and follow you, where can they do that?
Instagram, I'm mainly Crony in the classroom because teacher reference.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can follow my personal page, which is at Jennifer Amy, AMI, Jennifer Amy, spelled AMI.
Perfect.
But yeah, mainly on Instagram. I mean, I'm Jennifer Amy on Facebook, but I'm more sort of active on my Instagram.
Well, I'll put those links in the show notes for all of our listeners to go ahead and find you and follow your journey a little bit. Is there anything that I did not ask that you wanted to share today?
One thing that I did find out over the years, and I don't know how true this is, so like I'm not going to say it's scientific fact. I'm not going to say everyone should freak out about it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something I've learned, and I've talked to a lot of people around me. And I've done some research on it, and there is a lot of research. So like, feel free to Google as much as you like. But women and girls, especially young women and girls that are on the contraceptive pill, like read the information leaflet that it comes with, because I didn't do that, not fully, and it wasn't until my sister read it and said, "Hey, hang on a minute." Right at the bottom, it said like it can exacerbate or cause IBD, particularly Crohn's disease. So I immediately, as soon as she showed me that, I immediately stopped taking my pill, and I have been off that nearly 8-9 months now. And almost within the week of me stopping it, I felt like 10 times better.
Oh, wow.
Like even though I was on my medication, something in me shifted. Like it's like it wasn't. I couldn't explain it, and some people might say it was psychological. I don't know, but something in me changed, and I mean, I spent a fair few months with my hormones trying to balance out, which, every girl knows is slight hell. But
Mm-hmm.
now, yeah, everything's better. Like I think that contributed to me being able to eat the way I did and still continue to eat the way I am, because there's little symptoms that just aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And in fairness, if I look back when I was 16 and I started taking it, that's when all my symptoms started. And I didn't link the two back then, but if any I've said to any young girls, any women that have started it and suddenly notice a change in their digestive functions, anything that doesn't quite feel right, kind of look into that, because I'm not saying that has caused my Crohn's, but there's a whole load of research online that says that there's a possibility. And everyone knows that IBD, they don't fully know the full causes of IBD. So that's something to be aware of.
It's a great tip and information to consider. And just like you're talking about, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of information out there that talks about Crohn's and IBD as being this multifactorial, where it has to be this perfect storm of a little bit of genetics, a little bit of environment, and then maybe there's something that's kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so it's all of these different things. And so definitely that's a great piece of information to look into and have people, maybe make that connection for themselves if they're noticing that too. So it's a great tip.
As I said, it's not fact. I don't know it for real. It could be that, I already had Crohn's and that just made it worse, because it does say it exacerbates symptoms or can be the cause. So if people have got IBD already, then look into that. You don't want to make anything worse. And there's other contraceptive stuff out there that, like, I'm currently on nothing because I don't want to put any more drugs in my system at the moment. Just
exactly.
see if I can be a bit more natural. But it was definitely something that I probably should have looked at before, and it's kind of something I wish I knew about before.
Mm-hmm.
So I've talked to people about it, and I've said, hey, some of my friends that have a bit of digestive discomfort, I'm like, well, maybe, look at that. Like, don't keep on it and end up like me potentially. Like, be aware that could be a problem.
Yeah, it's always great to be aware of what we're doing and what we're putting into our bodies. So I think that's a great tip, great piece of info there. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. I really appreciate you jumping on with me today and sharing your story and helping to raise a little bit more awareness for IBD.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have an IBD story, either as a patient or a family member that you'd like to share as a guest on this podcast, or if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send me an email at crohnsfitnessfood@gmail.com. If you'd like to learn more about me and my Crohn's journey, follow me on Instagram using @crohnsfitnessfood, or visit my blog for in-depth articles about my struggles and victories with Crohn's through diet, fitness, and lifestyle at www.crohnsfitnessfood.com. And finally, remember, be strong, be grateful, and be the warrior that you are.